All right, let's talk about Jayden Daniels versus Drake Maye. Who is better? I decided to come up with a chart to kind of help us go through and decide who is the better prospect and just kind of compare the two and maybe talk about why you might prefer one towards the other. This is the chart. So we're going to track three different traits and rank them on three different evaluations. So first, running an offense, being a game manager, if you will, right? Then we have mobility, and finally, arm talent. The three ways I'm going to rank them are who's better right now, and by now I really mean who I expect to be better as a rookie. Then there's the potential, so who has the chance to be the best, what's your ceiling on any of these? And then finally, lowest floor, who has the, lowest floor, kind of goes without saying. So these are the three categories we're going to talk about. First, let's talk about running an offense, and let's start off with Daniels. The play you see on the screen is a cover 2 zone, and I think the one maybe criticism you could throw towards Daniels isn't even really a fair criticism, but more so LSU was such a dominant offense and had so many great pieces around that he kind of was able to just sit back and run the offense. It was easier for him. A lot of the reads were easier. A lot of times it was his first reads getting wide open, so you just don't have to challenge yourself too much, which nothing you can really do as a quarterback. Hey, it's a good thing when your reads get open. What are you supposed to do? But there were still some subtle things that I thought he did that were really smart at LSU. Something like this, which is, again, I said it's a cover 2 zone, but look at where the safeties are. That's where they're standing, and the one who's closest towards the bottom of the screen is essentially in the middle of the field, right? So, sure, he's covering the quote-unquote, left side of the field for the offense, but he's not really over there, and Daniels notices this stuff. Watch him take the snap, look up and notice the safeties, and then throws it all the way towards, outside the numbers, towards the bottom of the screen. The safety, eventually, it was actually a corner who tried to get over, and, there's sort of two players there. But it just wasn't enough. Again, Daniels, well, yes, it is a fair point to bring up that sometimes the situation was easy for him. It wasn't easy because that's the only way he could be successful. It was more so it was an easy situation, and he was also able to make some really smart plays and make things happen. Now let's go over to this play. This is a Drake Maye play, which, okay, so does Drake Maye do as good of a job as Daniels did at this stuff? Well, it's also fair to say that his situation wasn't quite the same situation that Daniels was, but at the same time, there's more rookie mistakes. This one's a good example, and this is kind of what you would see a lot with North Carolina. You're going to see that Drake Maye looks up, doesn't love what he sees. There was a blitz, and he takes the sack. Yes, that pressure was quick, but it was a blitz. You should know that the pressure was going to come quick and find a way to, either throw it to someone who's open or get rid of the football. Again, whether you think this play is good or bad or whatever, I certainly think it's fair to say running the offense was not Maye's specialty. He did it at times occasionally well, but certainly would have his misfires. He was inconsistent at it, I would say. So going over to our chart, let's go through the three categories. So right now, who is better? Well, it's pretty obvious to me. Jayden Daniels, we're going with initials to make things easier. He is the better player now. Now, who has the potential to be better? Well, I guess you could kind of argue either one, but I would probably say the guy who's better now also has the higher potential. So therefore, Daniels, once again, is going to get the nod for that. And then for lowest floor, kind of is a bit obvious here. That obviously means Drake Maye would have the lowest floor. Certainly there is some projection, and he's going to have to figure some of this stuff out. So a big part of Daniels' game is how he runs an offense, and a big part of Maye's struggles is how he cannot fully get all the nuances of running an offense down quite yet. As for mobility, I do think people aren't talking enough about Drake Maye's mobility. Plays like this, listen, he can make stuff happen, for sure. Watch this move. At the same time, though, going over to Daniels, there's no question. It is not the same between these two players. It isn't. I paused it here. Really good stuff. I would say, though, there is one big critique I have of Daniels that kind of, I think, is important to note. We did see Drake Maye, to his credit, slid at the end of that play. He did not get tackled. Daniels decides not to and gets more yards because of it, but does eventually get brought down, and quite frankly, sliding just isn't something he does. So while he is certainly a better runner with the football, he also takes more hits, which is an interesting situation. So going back to our chart, so who would I say is the better runner? Who do you get more value out of the running position? For me personally, I say Jayden Daniels. I think Jayden Daniels is the better player. And I also think that, if he can stop taking those big hits, his potential is better. So I'm giving him the nod there as well. But then when it comes to the lowest floor, unfortunately, I think due to the threat of injuries happening, I also have to put Daniels as the guy with the lowest floor as well for mobility, because I am really concerned about if he keeps taking these hits, especially with NFL-sized people tackling him and him not being the biggest guy, could he be getting injured left and right? That is a very real concern. So for Maye, I don't think that his mobility is going to actively hurt him that much, but it could be, still really good. And maybe his potential isn't quite as high as Daniels, but it's still very good. Whereas for Daniels, there's the sky-high potential of he could be Robert Griffin III, but also there is the scariness of he could be Robert Griffin III, right? And then finally, arm talent. Starting off with something like this, just like Daniels' rushing is just otherworldly and it just pops out at you and you're like, oh my god, this is great. Drake Maye's arm talent is the same way. This play is going to be a deep shot here, and watch what happens. Maye is going to take the snap. He, looks down the field. He fires down the field, standing at about his, 37-yard line. One thing worth noting, a lot of zip on this pass. He is not having to put a ton of air under it. He is definitely getting the ball, down the field in a hurry. And on top of it, watch the pinpoint accuracy. I mean, some of these throws he makes are just incredible. And not to crush Daniels too much or say that Daniels is bad at this, but there are times when you see him underthrow some of these deep balls. He just doesn't have the arm talent that Drake Maye does. He just doesn't. Both guys will miss some throws. Accuracy, I wouldn't say is perfect for either one, but I would certainly say that when it comes to just overall arm talent, I quite frankly don't think it's particularly close. So back to the chart. Where are we going here? Well, kind of goes without saying, as with everything else I've just said. I'm going to just fill out the whole chart. Drake Maye is better now. He has the potential for a better arm, and Daniels has the lowest floor, as he does sometimes underthrow those deep balls and stuff like that. I think you could argue the lowest floor, in potential are kind of the same thing in this particular category. So as a whole, it really does come down to me a little bit of just what kind of prospect would you rather have? Obviously, these are just 3 traits, and I could do this with 90 traits if I wanted to, right? But I do think it's fair to say, would you rather the guy who maybe is better at running an offense and more mobile, but also has the scariness of getting hurt and, some of his things that he's good at are fixable problems for Maye, right? Like the running an offense stuff is something you typically get better at. Or would you rather have the guy who is still pretty mobile, but protects himself better, has more arm talent, but is definitely a bit of more of a developmental guy, and certainly I wouldn't expect to come in right away and play elite right off the bat. Might take him a couple years, although we said that about Herbert. We said that about, even CJ Stroud was considered a bit of a developmental guy last year. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way. Bryce Young was considered not a developmental guy at all, and he really struggled year one, right? You never know. For me personally, I'll take the gamble on the arm talent for a guy who still is pretty mobile. I think the mobility is close enough. The fact that Daniels takes a lot of hits does scare me off enough that with the low floor in the mobility aspect of it, with the injury scary stuff, the sky high potential that Drake Maye has arm talent wise is enough for me to still lean towards Drake Maye, even if I do think Daniels is better at running an offense. That's what I think. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all, and of course, as always, thanks for watching.